Tim is back. Welcome to anybody who happens to be out there in internet land watching. Where's my stream deck is being streamy. There we go. And if you're out there and watching this now, the last couple of weeks I've had last week was binary digit. My mouth does not do that word combo. Binary digit / Liz talking with me about community streaming and stuff. And then the week-ish before that was Andy Bell, all the way from the UK, who's getting into live streaming. I think he started the work in public kind of idea, is sort of what he's aiming to do with some of their web dev newslettery course building content. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. And what have you been up to in the absence of having this very serious commitment every week?
Well, I watched the Andy Bell episode, and that was very cool. It was interesting to hear somebody talk about their plans for streaming. Why did my camera just disappear?
Yeah, you just it's like you went into the witness protection program at that moment. So, Tim, you've been accused of murder.
I have some webcam. I've been playing around with different webcams. I actually have my Canon plugged in through an app called Cascable.
Cascable?
Huh. But it's unlicensed, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that.
Does that happen every...
There we go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice. That does make it fairly unusual.
Sure, yeah, exactly. I don't feel like shelling out the $40 right now to make it happen. Oh, look, you can see the cables in my shelf there. That's not great. But I was just a moment ago on my iPhone, which I've never actually used before. And it just stopped working, and I don't know why.
Oh, like the continuity cam, like wirelessly, or?
Yeah. Oh.
Yes.
It says it's still on.
Yeah, that one is a little. It's
iffy?
Not. Yeah, I think actually that's what I'm using right now too.
Oh,
with my iPhone 13 on. I think it's continuity. Ecamm is a way to pull it in live too, but I think it's just using continuity.
Yeah.
And it.
Oh yeah. So I guess the desk view doesn't seem to work. I don't know why. But
that's it has to be right above the monitor.
But the regular view is not working now either. That's bizarre. I wonder if I should try to disconnect it and reconnect it. Pause. Okay. Resume.
This is where.
There we go.
Apple
Maybe?
stuff.
No, that's still desk.
That's still the desk view.
It just works.
It just works.
It just works, baby. No, it doesn't want to do it.
I did have the issue of the menu bar on your Mac. The continuity camera gets thrown into there's settings in the where is it now? In the menu bar for that, and mine was on. We lost him completely. Hopefully he joins us again. Let's see.
Oh, hung up on me. Sorry.
Professional, completely different camera.
Webcam. And so you're not, now this is my IMAX webcam, and you're looking at the back of my Canon camera.
Oh, gotcha. So we got 3 different looks at Tim so far.
Yeah, exactly. I could go back to the DJI Sport Cam, but yeah, this is fine for now.
That's funny.
So I was literally working for our whole conversation, and it just stopped working. I don't know why. So anyway, that's not very exciting, but that's what I've been doing today. Also, shopping for an air conditioner and shipping products off to Amazon, and just trying to progress in the world somehow.
Yeah. So the going back to the camera, you have the Canon something or other camera that you're trying to use with that other software. Have you ever? Is it like a proprietary one for that camera, or it's sort of like generic camera input stuff?
No, there is a proprietary. There's one from Canon which I never got to work, so I had to go find this other one called Cascable, which does work, but it's $40, and I don't feel like shelling out for that.
Yeah.
And that's using some extra piece is the only way I've gotten it to work. Do you
Right.
think Ecamm would have something to make it work?
Well, no, I was actually going to suggest. Let me see what I've got open here.
Right. So
Uh,
that's what I
yeah,
have, and it seems to work seamlessly, but it's $40.
Camo Studio is the one I've always used before, which I think is a similar idea.
Right. Yeah.
I've gotten to know the devs behind it. They actually included like a lemon related because I did a bunch of YouTube videos about it.
Mhm.
So I wonder if this would work. Likely it would work. It's free-ish unless you want, what is it, free, and then if you want to activate on more computers and stuff, then you can do Camo Pro. So like, you could try Camo for free and see if that works.
Right.
Um, for whatever reason, on my end, it stopped working with the stock camera or the webcam that I have, Anchor one that I have here right now, and so I can't use it. But it's really handy for being able to like switch cameras or adjust the look of the camera or whatever without having to fiddle with the camera
Hmm.
itself. So, um, but yeah, definitely highly recommend Camo for that kind of stuff. Even for like a generic webcam if you've got one, because you can add overlays and
Right.
stuff. It's kind of like handy for being if you're a guest on podcasts or whatever, you can kind of come with your own sort of branding, even if you wanted to on the on screen. So, but it sounds
Got
like
it. Okay.
Cascable is probably the same kind of idea, anyways.
I
But
think so, and it seems to work well.
just whether
I
you
just
pay
want to
for it.
explore all my other options before I
Yeah.
pay for it. Exactly.
Well, you went back to the witness protection program, so
Yeah, I'm still still messing around. Anyway, I'll give up for now. It was working again for just
that's
a
the spirit.
second, and then it stopped. I think it wants to be plugged in for some reason.
Yeah, it's a weird. It is crystal clear because you can see the dust on your keyboard, so
Right.
it's
Oh,
definitely a
maybe
good camera.
it's back. How's that? You see my sweaty face.
Yeah. So New York is hot today. You were saying before we started.
Yep, it's finally summer, which is great. It's nice. Summer in New York can be sweltering, but it's also an excuse to get out of town, excuse to go to the park.
Yeah.
There's a great spot in town called Governor's Island, which is like the historic island south of Manhattan. It's about, I don't know, I want to say it's like 150 to 200 acres. So it's not that big, but there used to be a fort there, and now there's like a food hall, and like you can rent bikes and go all around and just make a day of it. It's very cool.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I was saying before we started. I think, and if anybody's watching this, you should let Tim know that if you set a mic up by your window and just streamed New York sounds, I bet you people would just tune in. Somehow you need to get like New York sounds
Yeah,
without your apartment sounds. So if you're snoring on the couch
right.
or whatever, you're not picking that up. But
I
I
don't
mean, there's
snore. I
there's
don't
probably a
snore.
niche for that too on the internet, of course. So, but
Yeah.
do you have speaking of things to get away to? This random blue sky post. This is going to be a conversation that's meandering and not exactly technologically related, I don't think, but we'll see where we end up. But I posted a random picture on Blue Sky because I was walking my dog and took a picture of him looking out. There's an old drive-in theater that's now like a school bus parking zone area, and I just
Hmm.
jokingly captioned it, explained to Neville that what drive-in theaters are, but now he's sad that because he kind of looks sad in the picture. Now he's sad that he can't go to one anymore. And so then a whole bunch of people replied, giving me directions to drive-in theaters in their area, like some in the province where I live in Saskatchewan here, and then some, of course, down in Oregon and Ohio
Yeah,
and all over the place. So, how far would you have to go theoretically to find a drive-in
that's a
theater?
good question. I actually have no idea. Um, because it's possible that there might be one or two out on Long Island,
Mm,
but um, there's certainly like most people. I don't know. Actually, I don't know what the percentage is. Many people in the city don't have use of a car on a daily basis. So to like go to a drive-through, there's very little point.
right.
What we do often have instead are movies that are shown in parks, like Bryant Park. There's a park right behind the big New York Public Library. It's called Bryant Park. It fits, I don't know, 8,000 people, and they show like Back to the Future and
Yeah.
RoboCop and that kind of stuff throughout the summer. And so you can go do that sort of thing.
Right.
They also do that on Governor's Island, which I just mentioned, and in parks all over the place. So we don't have drive-ins, but we do have like open air movies every once in a while.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, it's interesting. It's
I bet I could drive to one, but I'd have to go to like Long Island or New Jersey or
yeah,
upstate, out of the city.
yeah, yeah,
If I want
which
a
makes
proper
sense in
drive-in.
a
Yeah,
non-car, well, a very car-dense place, but not a lot of people would be having cars to
yeah,
go to said drive-in theater. So yeah, I have
yeah.
to imagine, much like up here, it's a dying breed of movie theater. But there's one I noticed that was like nostalgically, obviously, reviving it for nostalgia reasons.
Hmm.
There was one actually, I don't remember which Discord I shared it in, but the web page for it is just an embedded Word document showing the theater times. And I was just like, that's someone who's like either completely given up or is just like, I don't know, like
Right,
this has got to work. They're not trying to like follow any web standards. They're just like, we need to get the thing up there, and the people are complaining they
right.
can't find the movie times. Nobody knows how to update the website,
That's funny.
but let's embed a Word document. So, anyways,
Interesting.
back in the day, that would have worked great. Front page 98.
Yeah. Actually, I do see a drive-in. It's about a half-hour drive for me. It's on the very east side of Queens where there's more room, and
Mm,
it's less. It's more car friendly, and because there's less public transit out there.
right. Gotcha. Funny thoughts. So, anyways, I'm planning. Join me over on Blue Sky, where we're planning a big road trip to visit drive-in theaters, I guess, this summer with strangers. So we'll rent a
Awesome.
bus or something. Um, the other interesting thing that happened just recently, as it relates to sort of in a roundabout way what we've talked about, is my client friend, which makes it sound like he pays me to be his friend, or yeah. Anyways, Justin
Okay.
Jackson, who owns Transistor.fm, CEO of Transistor.fm, with his friend John. He was just recently so I just finished editing their podcast called The Panel with his friend Brian. And as part of the conversation they had, which I think it's out already, it was out last week, anyways, I'll put a link to it somewhere. But as part of the conversation, he talked about how he went to this conference in London called the Podcast Conference. I think it was just that simple, but fairly big conference, like Spotify, Apple, big companies are there, lots of people, kind of like a meet and greet networking thing. And then
Hmm.
also as part of that, Apple was there giving a presentation at their headquarters, or they're not their headquarters, but their London office anyways, to a bunch of
Yeah.
podcast nerds, like hosting companies, etc., who are involved in the podcast industry. And basically they kind of like Justin's description of it, he came away kind of, and I'm listening to him talk about it, he was very excited about Apple's future with podcasting, which has kind of been in a little bit of flux lately as far as why they would want to keep promoting it as a
Hmm.
big thing, and whether they're actually invested in it or if it's just kind of like a thing that helps sell devices, and they just kind of let it run itself or whatever. And so
Right. Yeah.
just from a podcast nerd standpoint anyways, it was really interesting to hear his take on that and the excitement that Apple basically recommitted to. It's the 10-year anniversary, I think, of Apple
Interesting.
Podcasts or something. So in what has been sort of a bit
Interesting.
of a
So the
vacuum, they are like
Yeah.
recommitting to like Apple Podcasts is a thing, and we're going to build
right.
into it. And yeah,
Interesting. So they have a good pitch for the future instead of just, yeah, we have an app and it's going to stay there.
yeah, and almost like this is where it's tough to like know what Apple's real motive is, right? Because they lean into
Hmm.
privacy, but it's also because it sets them apart from Google, let's say, or Android or whatever. So it's not that, like,
Hmm.
I'm sure they do genuinely trust or want to be a company that's focused on privacy as important for the individual user, but it also makes a really good
Yeah.
business sense to differentiate themselves from Android. And so similarly here with podcasting, they kind of had a renewed effort or interest in the open ecosystem of podcasting. And it's, we're going to work
Hmm.
with people. We're not going to try and build our own platform that's, excludes companies like Transistor.
Right.
Whereas the Spotify's of the world would be more like, we're going to build our own platform, and we hope you all just
Sure.
live on Spotify, and we'll
Right.
use, Transistor for now, but pretty soon we'll ditch them because we'll just do our own thing or whatever and not let you host elsewhere, where Apple is saying kind of the
Right.
opposite. So,
Right. Because you can like have a non-Spotify podcast on Spotify. They still do the public, they still slurp up public RSS feeds for any and all podcasts, right? It's
yes.
just that they also will capture a podcast, like Joe Rogan, for example, the most famous example of a podcaster who is like you call him a podcaster because that describes the format, but it doesn't describe the open nature of his feed because it's not open, because it's only limited to Spotify.
Yeah. Which I think is he back open maybe now, like on He might be on other platforms
I
again
honestly
now.
don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
I don't know.
He happened to have Bono on. I'm a big YouTube fan. I guess you can't see any of the things,
I
but
heard
anyways,
that he had Bono on, and
yeah.
Bono kind of gave him a little talking to.
I haven't actually listened to it because it's like 3 hours long, which is incredible. Like it speaks to all. I can't stand Joe Rogan and I can't stand 3 hour podcasts generally, but like speaks to the fact that he can get Bono, who at best gives people like 10 minutes. I mean, he'll talk forever, but his
Sure.
PR people will only let him have 10 minutes with somebody to promote whatever his latest thing is. And he can get 3 hours from someone like that who doesn't normally do things like that. But at any rate, yeah, I actually was going to throw it into Descript. I downloaded the YouTube version and going to throw it into Descript and just cut out Joe Rogan's part if I wanted to listen to it. Make a special fan edit, as it were. But yeah, but even in contrast to YouTube, speaking of YouTube, that's where Apple Podcast 2 is. Like everyone and the dog is saying they need a video version of their podcast, and it has to be on YouTube, and that's where Spotify and YouTube are sort of fighting over video and hosting and stuff there.
Right.
And Apple's trying to like divide that or say like we're different. We're not gonna try and capture everything.
I wonder how much of that is behind. Like if Apple is reinvesting to a degree in podcasting, I wonder how much of it is kind of renewed interest in that content via YouTube, which is a closed platform. And Apple is wants to distinguish themselves from this company, which is going through a lot of turmoil at the moment. And like YouTube is one of the bright sparks in Google's universe, but there's a very good chance that the DOJ may split them up entirely. And so Apple makes a lot of money from Google, but they also need to differentiate themselves publicly as a business so that they're not seen as in bed with each other. So perhaps if they're competing more aggressively in the podcasting realm against YouTube, that's a little something they can point to and say, hey, we're not in bed everywhere. We're competitors here. We're competitors here. We purchase, Google purchases search placement from us in terms of being primary search in our browser, but we're not. We have other competing interests as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like we'll see, because it's like if it doesn't move the needle economically for them, eventually it doesn't make sense that they would keep putting money into Apple Podcasts, the platform like that, and they can just keep the thing running on autopilot. But
yeah, I mean, what moves the needle economically for Apple anyway? We're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar company.
That's true.
And podcasting has got to be like, the price of toilet paper at the Disneyland resort bathrooms in terms of how much money that makes.
Hey, we're important in podcasting. It's important. We do
relatively. I'm just saying, relatively, podcasts are important.
Yeah.
But when Tim Cook is looking at his spreadsheets, I bet the podcasts are on the fourth tab at the bottom.
Exactly. It's just a minor footnote. That's a cleaning fee.
Yeah. So if they have interest in podcasting, it's got to be something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of
whether it's like community relations related or antitrust related or something that speaks to a bigger priority, not just the funding.
Yeah, it's wild when you start thinking of companies like this as like when they do an event that they would put, let's just say it was like $150,000 or something into that event to host these podcast companies and related people, purely so that then 6 months from now they can, in a court case, say, look, we are supporting the open ecosystem, unlike YouTube, who's doing blah blah blah. Right? That's the scale at which we're playing with. Yeah. We're being played with, I guess, is maybe the better way of putting it. But
who's this is a slight tangent, but who's like in charge of the RSS spec, the podcast spec? So it's specifications that defines what a podcast is.
Yeah. So RSS spec. Actually, I don't know. I kind of know there's an RSS advisory board, which I don't. That's 2009.
Is it an independent organization, or is it?
As far as I know,
it's podcast is just an RSS feed in a specific format, right?
Yeah. So at the risk of reading,
it's got to reference a media file. It's got to reference the time and duration of the media file. It's got to reference a couple of things like that. But RSS was ostensibly originally developed to deliver textual content, and so podcasting is a little kind of branch off of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's interesting is so Justin and others. There's I forget what it's called. There's some community group that they've formed to try and like move RSS forward as it relates to podcasting. Not trying to change the original format of it for text and stuff, but to support newer things like where you could have, so rather than it being like our video version is on YouTube, but have a
Right.
what did he say, like a link basically in the spec to the video version is here wherever that happens to be, and that's in the RSS
That's
spec
exactly
as
what I
well.
was going to ask. Like,
Yeah.
who would have the capability to say, okay, we're updating the RSS spec. There is now a new tag for reference to an MOV or an MP4 or an whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And that way it takes away that, because right now it really feels like, unless you know what you're doing with like, and even nerds who know what they're doing, like the West Bosses of the world who put out video courses and stuff and do video, it's still really complicated and expensive to host your own video. And so you kind of like, you're really stupid not to use YouTube or Spotify if you have to
Yeah.
host video for your podcast, because like it's just.
But it would be nice to be able to deliver a reference to that in a formal way that podcast readers can say, oh, here's the audio link, here's the video link.
So that's where I don't know what, like the fact that, just like in the bigger picture, like the fact that Twitch isn't willing, Amazon, who owns Twitch, is not willing to fund them with S3 storage to host video. Amazon/Twitch says, host your video on YouTube. Says to me, it's not really economically feasible to host video for podcasts, even for Apple to just like pour billions of dollars into hosting for that. And so I think everybody's happy to say, hey, YouTube, you're doing great at that. Why don't you keep doing that? But just open it up a little, let us, have a few more, controls over this. That's me putting words into people's mouths that I haven't actually talked with. So I don't really know what the actual goal is with it, but
No, I mean, that's totally fair, because YouTube is the 8,000-pound gorilla in the video game, and they've already got the advertisement infrastructure hooked up. And so what are you going to do? That they offer their services for free. We're going to use their services.
Yeah. So, and that's where it's one thing to have, whether it's a moral or what's the word, like technical compulsion to fight against some of that and say, like I would say, like, please don't use Spotify for your podcast as a primary host, because they just aren't going to be. I don't trust them to be good caretakers of that in the big picture. Your individual show will be fine. In the end, you can move it somewhere or whatever. It's not going to be. But it will be a pain to move it when they decide to get bored with podcasting.
Put your audio files on a web host that costs you $12 a month.
Yeah.
Until it gets popular, and then when it's popular, you'll probably be able to afford professional hosting for your podcast. And
yeah, exactly.
And everything's all good, because the size of an audio file is 1/10 the size of a video file.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try playing this thing with Justin just to see if there's something I missed, because I know I'm the one who edited this short, so I should remember what's in it, but oops, of course. Went to the whole show.
It's a long shot, but here's why I'm hopeful. One of the things that happened in London is that Apple, for the first time, invited all of the hosting providers to their head office in London. So they got us in, they got us all security clearance, we all got Apple badges, and they did a whole event just for podcast hosting providers where they reiterated this is now the 20-year anniversary of podcasting. We are the home of podcasts. We are committed to the open ecosystem. We are so happy for all the work you've done lately. We've done a lot of work for Apple Premium subscriptions. We just launched direct submission to Apple Podcasts. I think they are increasing, like they're hiring more people, they're expanding, investing more resources into it. And they seem to be very focused on their legacy in podcasting. So they had this big reception for us. They had the head of Apple Podcasts there. They had all the product people. They had creator partners, all these people. And they're just saying, let's hear what you got to say. Now, I've always had a relationship with people there, and I send them ideas all the time. But this was like an official event. Then, for the first time ever, I think this is the first time this has ever happened, Apple gave a keynote talk at a conference for Apple Podcasts. So Apple has a lot of rules and guidelines. Basically, nobody at Apple speaks at conferences. Try to think of a single conference that's not an Apple conference. They only do their own events. This may be the first time this has ever happened, besides Steve Jobs or Tim Cook, but Apple did a keynote talk at the podcast show, and the message was the same thing. Podcasting is celebrating 20 years. Apple is the home of podcasting. open by design is their new slogan. So, and they have basically a screenshot of XML, like an RSS feed XML. And then they showed another slide, which was not just open by design in terms of RSS, but open by design in terms of enabling this ecosystem of independent apps. And then they showed Overcast, Pocket Cast, Castro. I think they're gearing up for something bigger. Now, it's a long shot. My goal is to keep moving the ball forward in the open ecosystem because I'm passionate about it. This is why I'm excited about the alternate enclosure tag for RSS, is that you can still have your audio episode first, but alternate enclosures could include the streaming video version. It could also include a too long didn't listen version, which is 3 minutes long. Someone could say, just give me the too long didn't listen version. And on the hosting side, that could be generated with AI. Like we could just automatically shorten it, give us the 3-minute version of this 1 hour and 12-minute conversation. All of that's possible. Those are some of the things I'm thinking about.
So anyways, yeah, those are the two things I was excited about when I listened to it. It's like the idea that you can cough yourself. You're so emotional about it, causing you to choke. But yeah, like the alternate enclosure thing, and then also the too long didn't listen version, which I feel like is actually, as much as I hate like AI, smushing stuff and picking out whatever, there is an element of like your hosting platform that you've signed up for doing that for you, or giving you the ability to do it yourself. Like if I could just say, here's the 3-minute version of this 3-hour podcast that Bono had with Joe Rogan, if I'm their editor, and people can listen to that and then be like, it's like a trailer almost for the podcast, but also for people who are just like, I just want the Coles Notes version because I literally can't listen to it all right now and maybe won't ever.
Right.
I think those are two really neat ideas that they're, as well as the video one, like that they're kind of promoting. So anyway.
Yeah. The thing, one second.
Gotta stay hydrated.
Some water went down the wrong way. The thing I immediately started thinking about when he was talking was like, if they're all about this open platform and the open ecosystem, the thing that this is probably speaking to more than any of our other ideas before are the antitrust aspects, all the antitrust efforts regarding the App Store. This is probably something that they're pushing just to have something in there, on slide 20 of their 100-slide presentation to the antitrust folks at the DOJ and at the EU and stuff like that, saying, look, we're not all closed. We do all kinds of open things at the same time.
Yeah.
The App Store is a special thing and we have to protect it for yada, yada. But we do, we work with an open source browser system. We work with podcasting. We work with yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, that makes total sense that they would spend probably a fraction of a % of their legal budget towards some good PR in the podcasting world.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one that's and I don't think that's even nefarious. I think there is you can, however much of an Apple fanboy you are, or girl, you can make a case that the EU in particular has it out for Apple in a certain way. And there's benefits to the fact that they're having to have this fight. And I do support the idea of it in some cases for just moving the ball forward in terms of how open Apple has to be. But by the same token, I think they do have a right to try and defend a bit of what they're doing and where they make money, where they're profitable, etc. And obviously nobody really has sympathy for like $1 trillion company that's like saying, please, we need our 30% from, Panic Software or whatever. That's just so that we can keep the lights on or whatever. But so it's a good one, like in terms of Apple being willing to say that publicly. And then in terms of the podcasting community anyways, at least now too, we can say a year from now, 2 months, 2 years from now, whatever, hey, you said this and now you're doing this BS thing over here, like where you're locking this down and you're not letting us in. I think we can't trust you anymore. It's in the podcasting world anyways, Apple hasn't been like in the video game world. I feel like Apple has been constantly doing like the Lucy football to Charlie Brown thing where they're like, no, this year you're going to have awesome gaming on the Mac. And then it's like one title comes out the whole year and that's it.
Right.
And the next year at the next WWDC, which is on Monday here, they'll say, look at all the games that are coming or whatever. And And so podcasting hasn't been burned in that same way, I don't think, at least not publicly or in any major scale level kind of stuff by Apple. So there's still optimism and hope that they could, be good, be a good steward here. instead of a
Yeah.
Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah, you're right. Every I don't know if it's every year, but at least every other year, it's like, oh, maybe I'll be able to play GTA 4 on my Mac. Nope, not this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been. I keep lamenting and blogging about just the idea of getting Fortnite on the Mac again, which it used to be. That's where I first started playing Fortnite, and yeah, it's now that it's somewhat more open, but even that it's in the States on iOS, but not outside of the States and EU, just because legally that's what
Oh,
as
really?
much as Apple has been forced to open up or whatever, and let Epic Games back on. So, so yeah, I know actually what's actually going to happen or what has to happen is I have to commit to buying a new console of whichever stripe or gaming PC for my office here. And once I do that, then Apple and Epic will make up.
Apple will say, okay,
yeah.
you can have it.
So if you commit to my, contribute to my GoFundMe to help Apple and Epic.
Well, just go ahead and do that, and then keep the receipts.
Exactly. It's a write-off. It's a write-off. Total write-off. So, yes. Anyways, that's what's percolating in my brain. I had a fun little one last thing before we shut it down here is I've been on this quest, and I can't remember if we talked on stream about it, but just like I use Notion for some stuff, I use Apple Notes for some stuff, I use reminders for some stuff, my stuff is all over the place, and it kind of like is piecemealed because I'll start one project and then something else. A client is in another one, so I'll use that for a while. Anyways, I've been kind of on this mission to roll back to being. Hey, Dallas, thanks for the bit. And on this mission to go back to like keeping it simple with, in terms of using Apple's stock stuff, because things like Notes, if you haven't used it in a while, Notes and Reminders has gotten actually quite powerful compared to what it was like 3-4 years ago, if that was the last time you were in it. And so, I'm kind of like on this little mission to do that and explore that at least before I commit to, because the main driver, honestly, is I really enjoy Notion as a everything app for both to-dos and brain dumping and all that kind of stuff. But
I thought X was the everything app.
It's true. Have you seen? I happened to see somewhere. I saw a screenshot of someone sharing it on X that Musk is now like fighting with Trump publicly on X, like he's trolling him and replying.
It's hard to know how much of that is legitimate and how much is PR. So it's hard to take seriously.
Again, up here in Canada, we can kind of laugh at it and be a little less affected on a day-to-day basis. But anyways, sorry, I just noticed that a embedded photo is not working anymore on my. After I talked about how well it worked on my blog, but here, let's switch over to the desktop view here. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, using some of this stuff so that I don't have to pay for Notion, which has been adding AI into all the things, and not just adding AI, which is whatever, you can do that, but then they're upping the cost because they're adding AI.
Pay for the AI.
Yeah, and not having an option for like, no, just give me the app. So big motivation, and start of this was actually Dave Rupert's client and friend who his problems with Notion here, his blog post was the big thing too. Like on the surface, it's like, what's going from 8 to 12, so whatever. Like I'm a tech nerd. That's not like going to break my bank by any means as far as my tech commitments and my subscriptions that I use for software and things in my work.
Yep.
But it also is like reading his thing. It was like I'm subsidizing other people who use AI by the fact that I'm not using it just to pay for their whatever crap. And so kind of wanting to ditch that at least on if possible anyways. So, but yeah, I was playing.
Yeah, even if only for a little while. Like most of the time when you cancel something like that, there's a little forum that says, "Oh, why are you canceling?" Just tell them.
Exactly.
Because some marketer is reading that, and there'll be 1,000 notes that say, I don't want AI, so I'm going to look for something else.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll have an impact, and maybe it won't.
Yeah, exactly. It's possible, but it probably won't move the needle. And because, well, especially AI feels like overwhelmingly like that's where we have to go. So now it's bugging me that there's supposed to be the giant photo here, but obviously it didn't work. Anyways, I built a little shortcut that allows me to, with my phone, which I can't pull right now because I'm using it as the camera. But the actually shortcuts is on the Mac. Here, let's see if I can edit this. I frequently.
What's your daily driver that right there? Is that a Mac Studio?
Yes. Yeah. Desktop.
Okay.
Which every summer or this summer comes around. I'm like, oh shoot, I really wish I had a laptop because then I could go somewhere. And now I have to haul a desktop and a monitor. But anyways, that's a first world problem. But yeah, with the phone, there's a shortcut I made on the phone, an app. Basically, I tap it and it just pops up with all the screen says is tap the screen to stop recording. So it's just like instantly start recording a thought, thing I want to remember, a blog post idea, whatever it might be. And then from that, once I tap the screen, it automatically puts the dates and ask for a text for a title if I want to put it in, and then appends it to a note in Apple Notes. And so then from there, that actually automatically transcribes it. You can see a screenshot of it here. So it just builds these one note with each sort of transcription on it.
That's nice.
Unfortunately, I can't get it to do what's that called? Like reverse chronological. It's always like the oldest or the newest one is at the bottom, and I wish it was the other way around. So there's probably a way I'm missing to do that inside of this. But
that's funny because like in like the notes themselves are listed.
Yes,
reverse chronological.
Exactly.
But
so I could always create a new note. It
makes sense that like yeah. Like so you could have a folder and just create a new note every time in that folder.
Yes, yeah, which is probably what I will end up doing because the problem is then the transcription, which is awesome, like it gets a basically, almost dead on transcription if I'm talking clearly, which I could theoretically, and that's what this blog post was kind of the idea of like from here down.
This is like Siri enabled transcription?
Well, it must be, yeah. Like it's inside of Notes app, so I don't have to like in the shortcut. It doesn't do anything. It just
You're not
throws the
feeding
audio
it through some other third-party stuff.
No, yeah.
From your mouth to Apple servers to the Notes app.
Exactly. Yeah. Theoretically, on the phone itself, I think I don't even know if it leaves the phone as far as privacy. But
we don't need God's ears anymore. We just need Apple servers.
Exactly. So, and then from that, I can theoretically copy and paste that right into Ghost, my CMS. So whatever your CMS is of choice, obviously doesn't really matter. And then there was a photo here and it was working, but I'm wondering now if it was because I had the Notes app open. Actually, I'm just going to switch to, which doesn't make sense. I'll have to check the blog post, but, anyways, I tried copying and pasting from Notes right into the CMS, and it worked really well, aside from obviously cleaning up a bit of the like punctuation and a few texts. So I was walking my dog, able to just dictate out a blog post and then come back to the desktop and copy and paste that in without typing anything. But it is actually my stuff, not like, some other version.
That's interesting. I have been kind of playing with a thing where I'm using Apple's Keynote to as a tool to generate like YouTube videos about a specific topic, like so like YouTube video as slideshow, but like and like I'm going to have a voiceover, which for me is much easier to dictate rather than type. It hadn't occurred to me like your workflow sounds perfect, where I could have a shortcut, so I start a recording, go through my slideshow dictating what I want to say everywhere, and then automatically have a transcript that I can edit so that I can reread it for the final performance.
Yeah, it will give you a good like draft version of it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right.
And to be clear, if you've used like voice recorder on your phone or on the Mac for that matter, will do this. Like if you just open voice recorder, you can just record into it. It creates a dictation thing. So you don't need to build a shortcut to do that. The shortcut idea helps with like on the go right now. I just want to do it and don't have to think about which app do I open? Where does it end up? How do I save it? What I'm going to name it? All that kind of stuff. It's kind of like
got it.
First brain dump draft. But even still, like you could be walking down the streets of New York there, and as you do, and dictate your thoughts about what you want the keynote to look like or sound like, and then refine
at like what you're doing like is like what I do is I'm walking down the street, I have an idea, I tell Siri to remind me like this afternoon or tomorrow morning or something, to do this thing or to look up this thing or learn about this thing. Which is also good, but it leaves much less of a trail. So like creating a series of notes seems better, strictly
Yes.
speaking.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And actually that's which sort of on this other theme of like Apple's default apps are pretty good. Reminders as well is a weird one where they added at one point, what do they call it? Categories, I think, or groups. I forget what it's called, but basically in order to support like smart grocery sorting, they put in like the ability to do like categories basically, right, of your list. And so, and they also added a view where you can view it as effectively like a Kanban board, but like, a side scrolling view as it were. I don't want to show my reminders because I can't remember what's in there right now, but this is a screenshot that I shared. And like so many people aren't aware that reminders can even do this. And so I don't actually do this anymore with this, but like I've been switching from putting my to-dos inside of Notion or another app I used to use called Todoist back to just reminders. And this today view combined with sort of assigning a day of the week for specific tasks rather than viewing it as like it's due on that week, on that day. It's more like every day it comes up as a task for me. Has been kind of like revolutionary is too big a word because I'm just still putzing away editing podcasts, obviously.
Sure.
But it does help in terms
Game
of just
changing.
like, life changing is maybe the right word. I don't know. I'm happier with my kids. My dog is even pooping better. Anyways. So yeah. But like so many people don't know
I never use the like reminders app itself. I just use the Siri version of it. I very rarely open up the reminders app.
Yeah.
When I do, it's accidental, but
yeah.
maybe I should take a look at it.
The other one that I think it's safe to show this here, like, so I created a newsletter. I don't know if I'm going to actually do this, but like a newsletter list inside of reminders. And then anywhere on any site, I can share. Why can't I see share? What? There, share at the top. From reminders here to that list, let's say a link. It works great out of Safari or whatever, but like to that website. But you can also take that one step further if you're browsing on your phone and be like, hey, remind me, hey, voice guy, remind me about this website, this email I'm looking at in Apple Mail tomorrow at 10 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it shows up as a reminder there too, which is underutilized thing, I would say, because it's funny because we're in this process of like educating our kids on how to be responsible adults and remembering for themselves instead of relying on, mom and dad to remind them to register for the thing or put the thing away or whatever, not just like house cleaning stuff, but, and it's funny because they carry around their phone, they stare at their phone a lot, but they make zero use of like almost zero use of calendar reminders, etc. And so we're kind of like having to train these digital natives, as it were, in how to actually use the phone for things besides just scrolling reels. So I'll report back on how that actually goes, but I'm not optimistic.
Cool.
Anyways, that's all I have for rambling thoughts. So I think we conquered everything. Life-changing moments. Got a bit.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have anything scheduled for next week or whatever. We'll see if I round up someone to chat with, or not that you're the last reason. That's not a bad thing. Anyways, I appreciate getting to chat with you and bounce ideas off and help you troubleshoot cameras. And
for sure, I appreciate it.
We'll be back, or I'll be back, or somebody will be back. Anyways, next week, same time-ish, hopefully. All right. See you, folks.
Cool.
I don't even know which camera I'm looking at. Bye.